Hello, hi, good evening. My name is Zohaib Qamar. Thank you for joining us this week. As we mentioned, this is going to be our weekly event every week on Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Virtually, our goal is going to be to connect different professionals with the community, help answer questions that students in high school, college have, also answer questions from parents, and then for people who just graduated college that are trying to figure out what the right career for them is to do. Our goal is to connect with professionals. So the first week, last week, we covered advice on how to pay for college. This week, our goal is to cover general tips on how to succeed in college. So what are some ways that you can get ahead and land that dream job of yours? If you want to go to graduate school, what are some things that you can consider to get ahead? As a brief recap, my name is Zohaib Kumar. I'm a CPA by profession. I work at a government agency as an accountant. And I'll throw it over to Junaid to introduce himself.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Zohaib. So a little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Junaid. I'm a CPA as well. Right after I went to Baruch College for my undergrad and Queens College for my graduate studies. Right after college, I did an internship at Johnson & Johnson and worked in the public accounting firm at PwC as an auditor, then moved on to consulting route, working at Ernst & Young. So I have about 5 to 6 years of working in public accounting. And then currently, about 2 months ago, I decided to quit my job to go towards the entrepreneurship route, just focusing on growing the business that I was working on. And I'm currently a CFO at SK Mobile. So that's a little bit introduction about myself. And just to kind of make it interesting, a little fun fact about myself. I love going to the gym, and working out. I have my own gym built in my backyard.
Perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. Brother Saeed, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. I am Professor Sayeed Islam. I'm very happy to be here, happy to talk about college. So my day job is I am an associate professor of psychology at Farmingdale State College. And when I was, I went to Rutgers University. I did a bachelor's in economics. I grew up in New Jersey, which I know for folks in Long Island is like, why is he even allowed on this screen? So feel free to make fun of New Jersey in the comments. I'm okay with that. After I graduated from Rutgers University, I got a job at Kaplan, test prep and admissions. And I used to teach SAT, GRE, GMAT, LSAT, and occasionally MCAT verbal classes. And if you want to know, I have taken quite a few standardized tests, so don't take that many. And then after that, I decided to go back and do my MBA in human resource management. I was doing work in training and development, and a lot of different HR tasks at Kaplan. And eventually also did a master's in industrial organizational psychology, which is the psychology of work. And I loved it so much, I said, I'm going to do my PhD in that. And I ended up doing my PhD over at Hofstra University in applied organizational psychology, and eventually ended up as an associate professor at Farmingdale State College. I also have my own consulting practice where we do people analytics. If you want to know what that is, I'm happy to answer that for you. And so we work with large and medium-sized businesses to help them use data to make better human capital decisions.
Right? Perfect. Thank you so much. No, it's a great introduction. So what we wanted to do is start off and talk about, because it's Ramadan and we're an Islam-based organization, we want to, highlight those things. So was there anything interesting about being a Muslim and going to college that you can share with us?
You want to go ahead, Professor Saeed?
Junaid, you can just call me Saeed, like professors for the students, right? One of the biggest adjustments was, when I was in high school, it wasn't that big of a deal to, I grew up in Edison, New Jersey, where it's full of brown people. So it wasn't that difficult to, kind of be myself and have those, sorts of relationships with people where they understood that I was Muslim. When I got to college, I met with a little bit more opposition to being Muslim, and especially, I don't know if everybody can tell, my last name is Islam. So there's no way to hide that I'm Muslim. Like, everybody knew. So I had to answer a lot of different questions in college in a way that I wasn't really fully prepared for. And so there was a lot of learning that happened at that time. And especially like because I was moving from building to building, Rutgers was a huge campus. Finding prayer space was a new thing for me. So I ended up praying in a lot of stairwells. That was very commonplace, or in the campus center. If I was lucky enough to be in the prayer space that was provided by the college, then I could do that. So those were some things that I had to adjust to.
So from my side, when I was at Baruch, I didn't have that much difficulty. Baruch being a very diverse school, there's a good Muslim presence over there. And you're in MSA, you have that praying spot available. You had the iftar option available. So it wasn't that challenging because kind of growing up accustomed to that, right? Fasting while going to school, or fasting while working. So it wasn't that much of a big deal because there were other peers in my own circle that were doing it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not really about there was a very strong MSA presence at Rutgers, but I was meeting lots and lots of different types of people and ended up in lots of different types of conversations that I wasn't used to. So there was a lot of kind of intercultural exchange that I had to get used to. And that, at least the good thing that came out of that was that I'm very confident and comfortable in talking about being Muslim, and I can answer a lot of basic questions now that I don't think everybody can. So that was a good experience for me.
Absolutely. No, thank you. That's helpful. So one thing I want to throw out there, if you think about college success, that's the topic for today, right? That means different things to different people, right? Everybody's going to college for a different reason, and they might not be trying to get the same thing out of their college experience. Some people are going to college because they need to go to college to go to graduate school, law school, medical school, get their MBA. Other people are going to school because their parents are telling them they have to go to college, right? Other people are going to school and most people are probably going to school to get a job at some point, whether it's right out of college or a few years after college. And then other people are going for the learning experience to then potentially go a PhD route. They want to research something. So everybody's college goals are going to be a little bit different. Keeping all of that in mind, what's some overall advice you can share about how college is different from high school? So you have parents of high school students who haven't had kids that have gone to college, or kids who are in high school ready to graduate, and they're like, how's college so different from high school? Isn't it the same thing? If you guys could share some advice, thoughts on that.
Sure. So I'll take a first stab at that one. I think in high school is more like, you have a teacher that's kind of checking up on you. Hey, did you do your homework? But at the same time, when you're in college, there's nobody checking up on you, right? You have that independence. And one of the best thing about college is, you are on your own and you're meeting different people. Nobody's checking up on you. And you just got to make the best of it in college. Go out there, get involved in is what you make in college, right? I mean, it's the best time of your career that you'll have. I mean, in high school, you have someone checking up on you on things. You don't have that much of an independence. You're 18 years old, and you can make college for the best of your experience, right? You can use it to learn as well. You can go out there, make friends. You can build a lot of your leadership skills by being involved in clubs. You can go out there and it's what you make out in college. Like, I wasn't that bright of a student in high school, and I had to work twice as hard in college, and so it's like, if you make the best of it in college, it'll really pay off in the long run as well. I can definitely share more insight onto that one, but I'll pass it on to Sayeed to talk about his experience, and then I think the other questions will kind of answer those questions.
Sure. So I'll say that my transition from high school to college was a tough one, because in high school you're used to things being very set in place. Homeroom starts, the beginning of the day. You know what you're going to be doing. You go to classes every day. In college, there's a lot of downtime, a lot more downtime than you might imagine, and there's a lot of space to fill with whatever you want to do. And then there's a lot of choices, right? Like you can take classes that you want to take, and they're, in some cases, especially if you go to a very large large public institution like Rutgers, you're not many people know you in the administration, and there may not be, mentors that are easily accessible. So this is one of the things that I think is very important for high school students to know, is that you can get lost in that process. And so a good skill to gain in high school now is time management, is to kind of think about, well, how do I manage my time, right? In the same way that you manage your prayer schedule, what else are you doing with your time, and how do you have control of that? Because when you get to college, you're going to be the one in charge of all of that. Just like Junaid mentioned, there isn't a teacher that's going to follow up with you. As a college professor, I don't follow up that often with my students unless they tell me that they need some sort of help. I trust that they are going to be the ones that are going to manage their learning process, that they're going to manage a study schedule, that they're going to be able to manage a work schedule. So all of those things are important skills to gain. And there's a lot of research that seems to indicate that, students that have a harder time managing their own time, that have a harder time with, dealing with the scheduled process, can kind of fall through the cracks. So I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do. But the great thing about that is that time is your time, and you can find ways to invest in yourself. And as Junaid mentioned, you can be a part of a lot of different clubs, and you can do a lot of really cool things.
Perfect. No, that's very helpful. Thank you. And I would say you brought up a really good topic about how as a college student, you have to kind of decide how you want to spend your time. So one of the tips for success that I would say that I want to throw out there would be learning how to manage your time and conflict management. As a professor, I also teach as an adjunct professor. I teach 2 classes at Queens College. One of the things that always surprises me is at the end of the semester, there's always 1 or 2 students that come up and say, "Professor, I'm sorry, I didn't know what was going on this semester. I couldn't keep up with the assignments. I couldn't do the homework. I didn't have the software. I got the book late. My dog died this semester. XYZ happened to me this semester. Can I still pass?" And I'll say, "You're coming to me now at the last day of the class. How can I help you at this point?" Right? It's very, very hard if you're coming at the end of the semester to a professor. If you come in the middle of the semester, you say, "Hey, I'm struggling with the homework." I'll say, "Okay, let me work with you. Let me give you extensions on the homework. I want you to do the work. I'm not trying to give you an easy A just because you asked for it," right? If you're struggling with the midterm, let me give you detailed notes on how to prepare for that midterm, practice assignments that will help you prepare for those type of questions you might see. But it's very tough at the end of the semester if you show up. And isn't it like the same way when you graduate and you go into work at a company like PwC, Junaid? If you work in a project environment in most companies, you're working in a team of 3, 4, 5 people, and you're not doing your part, and you show up on the day the assignment's due and the project is due to the client. You can't say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I was struggling." The first
Exactly.
question you'll get is, "Why didn't you reach out earlier? How come you didn't let anybody know?" Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I just want to kind of put out there, right? A lot of times what you often hear is that, hey, you know what I learned in college, I don't even end up using in real life, right? In my job. Like in reality too, right? You learn a lot of it on the job. But what college does teach you is, it teaches you how to work on when you have those projects, how do you work on those projects? How do you manage your time? At the end of the day, right? Like if I was to hire somebody as well, I would look at, hey, how does the person manage their time? How is the person with working as a team? And those things really matter. The other thing, like you mentioned, right, if you come all the way at the end, if I did that, or even my team member did that, not only the person is going to get a bad review, even my own self, there's more chance of me getting fired from my job as well. I worked for Ernst & Young, and it's just like raising things at the right time. That's what matters. So I know we were talking about college, but yeah, that's my take on that. I just wanted to put out there.
Okay. Say, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think one thing that you'll notice, and I hope everybody notices this, there are 2 college professors here telling you, please reach out to us for help. one thing that I always think that happens with with students is sometimes they may feel shy about reaching out to a professor, or if there's a teaching assistant, you can reach out to them. There are a lot of resources on campus to help you through the challenges and issues that you might be facing. And really, the major thing that you have to do is recognize that you need the help, and secondly, reach out for that help. One thing that I'm always intrigued to hear from students is sometimes they'll tell me that, I felt like you would think less of me if I reached out for help. And I said, no, I want you to reach out for help. That's, I'm not a college professor so that I can be like, no, please don't ask me questions. That's not why we're here. And so you should feel comfortable to reach out for support. There are opportunities to get that support. And maybe the support doesn't come from professors. It might come from your friends in the Muslim Students Association. It might come from other sources, other support staff on, that are at the university. But please feel free to reach out if something happens, because then we can address the problem. As Brother Zohaib mentioned, if you reach out to the professor at the end of the semester, at that point, we're stuck. We have to submit grades, and we can't really do a whole lot. Prior to that, we can do what we need to do to help you along. And so that's something that I hope everybody leaves here understanding, that we're here to be supportive and to be helpful.
Sure. I did see one or two questions came in. So Sarah asked, is this event targeted toward high school students? I would say yes, it's for high school and college students. Our goal is to kind of help answer questions on how you can get ahead, sharing our own experiences and general advice that we've built up over the years. There's a very specific question related to somebody named Ikra, who works as an audit associate at a public accounting firm. And she said that she was constantly feeling she's not getting enough billable hours or support. It's been tough for her. So Junaid, you and I both have worked at Big Four accounting firms, so we know that industry. I thought the question's out there, might as well answer it now and try to see how that can apply.
Sounds good. Ikra, we could kind of make it a little high level here, and then you can always feel free to reach out to me even after the event via email, and then I can connect with you and give you additional advice. But here's because in the past 6 years, right, when I was in the first 6 years in public accounting, there were some downtime that I had as well, right? And it's like what you make of your downtime. Sometimes you have to talk to the right people at the right place, right? Sometimes talking to your peers can help. Sometimes, usually in the public accounting firm, there's a counselor assigned to you. You can talk to a counselor, be like, hey, this is what I'm going through. What do you recommend? Or another thing that you can do is being involved in the firm, just like, in the college as well, right? If you're more involved out there, you're going to make the best of it. So like, I remember there were some downtimes that I had as a manager at Ernst & Young. And one thing I did was I was getting involved in these social committee events, and our social committee group, which was organizing like fun events for the whole practice of about 300 people. And another thing you can do is just like, there's non-chargeable work, right? So like firm is kind of working on, new accounting guidance, right? And that's what brings them the bread and butter. So, you be part of those initiatives. There's these, they call these fancy word like campaigns. You can be part of those, and just being out there and being involved, right? And that will kind of put a light, and people will know, hey, there's that person out there that's making a meaningful impact. And how I can relate to that in real college life too, right? A lot of times we are shy, to kind of hear a no. When we hear that one no, what we will say is, nah, man, I don't want to go to that person, man. I'm afraid, that I will hear a no again. Hey, what's the worst you're going to hear? Just a no, another no, right? So might as well go up to the person. Like, I heard so many no's and I didn't give up. Like, even like when I was going to college and I wanted to work for these Big Four accounting firms initially. And I was like, that was my dream. I'm like, I got rejected first year, I heard no. Second year, I heard no's again. And then third year, I went out there and, went to like 2-3 events out of state, networked. And, that year while I was in Queens College, I ended up getting a job at Johnson & Johnson and at PwC, both of them at the same time. I took both of these offers. One was an internship, one was a full-time offer. So I got things lined up. So you know what? Sometimes being persistent and, a lot of it is also being, and it's what you believe in. Alhamdulillah, I always believe in that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has everything planned for you. Like, if it's meant for you, you're going to get it. But at the same time, you have to go out there and push yourself and go out there and be the person to get it. And inshallah, if you put your mind and effort into it, you'll definitely get it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's helpful. And I'll just throw out one or two other things of it, pieces of advice. One would be when I first graduated. I graduated and I started working at an accounting firm in 2008. So that was like the financial crisis, right? So they were laying people off. There was, you're always worried if you don't have enough billable hours, you're going to be the one to be fired because you're not doing enough work. And all of us were freaked out at that time because we would see our friends at other accounting firms being fired right out of college, working 1 or 2 months. So, that's always a fear in the public accounting profession, or any corporation right now, especially with COVID going on. But I would say, don't first manage that stress level, right? What's going to happen is going to happen. We put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our goal is to just do the best that we can. Specific advice for you might be that reach out to your manager, your senior associates that you work with, and say, "Hey, I'm working 20 hours with you. I have 20 hours free. Any advice on what I can do?" It's really seeking out those mentors within your own network, right? And saying, "Hey, that's what I used to do." I would say, "Hey, after I finish this project in 3 weeks, I have nothing on my schedule. Hey, John, can I join your team? I know you have another project coming up. Do you need another person? I'm very motivated. I want to help." So even just in a friendly, nice way, joking around way, just mentioning it, you get your name out there, and then somebody will say, "Okay, who always speaks up about wanting to do more work? Ikra always speaks up. We have extra 10 hours a week we can give her. Let's put that on her schedule." So just being proactive, not getting down, seeking those mentors. And like you said, sometimes you feel like, because I'm a Muslim, it's hard for me to be that person to speak up. Sometimes in the Asian community, we have culture where we don't make as much eye contact. We don't want to speak out as much. We would want to be perceived as being selfish or something like that. But every profession is a little bit different. In the accounting profession, being proactive is not looked down upon. They like that. So don't be scared to speak up, and even don't feel isolated or anything like that. Any other thoughts, Saeed?
I would just say that, especially for college students, the advice to seek out mentors is, I think, really important. One of the big differences between high school and college is, in college, you're not going to be interacting with the professor that often, especially if you go to a place like Stony Brook. If you go to a large, institution where classes are among 300 people, your professor does not know who you are, and so that means that you need to build relationships with maybe teaching assistants. You might have to build relationships with other students to kind of build that rapport. And then if you're looking to get those opportunities, so if you're planning on going to medical school, law school, and you're thinking about, how do I get into a lab so that I can do research? How do I, find a internship with a law firm? How do I do those things? Building those relationships and putting yourself out there and communicating, what you might want is really important. The second big thing I would say is to listen. That there are opportunities that will make their way to you. You just have to kind of pay attention and make sure that you're aware when those opportunities arrive. So just as Junaid and Zohaib mentioned, if Allah intends a particular opportunity to reach you, it'll reach you, but you do have to make sure that you're ready and prepared and open to that. Otherwise, you'll end up missing that opportunity. So it's important to to kind of be ready for those opportunities to arise and to kind of build those relationships. I can personally, in graduate school and in my work as a business owner, personal relationships are everything. I get referrals, I get research opportunities through personal relationships. And if I had done more of that in college, I think things would have been maybe a little bit easier for me.
Oh, that's really good advice. And I think I just touch upon the last thing. So our question was going to be, any tips for students who are working and also going to schools to make the most out of their college experience and get ahead in college? So, Junaid, do you want to go first? Share your thoughts
Sure.
on that.
So when I went to throughout my 4 years, as I mentioned, like I wasn't a bright student in high school, so I had to work, I feel like twice as hard in college. So, I probably didn't get too involved in like hanging out as much, but maybe once a week, right? But then, I was always working while going to school at the same time. And at times, I had to pay the bills as well. So I had to take on an unpaid internship and working at the bank. And taking classes in the city and commuting at the same time. So it was like, doing all, and I see a lot of students do that. It's not like, hey, I'm the only one who kind of went through that, but there's a lot of other people that being in Baruch College, and you kind of saw that coming. So like it just you just have to basically manage your time, right? Time management is a key, right? You need to prioritize, hey, what's important to you, right? Hey, is working really hard like in that 4 months during that semester. Once you do that, you have that 1 month that comes around, right, in January, off, and then you have another 2 months off in the summertime, right? And if you just work really hard even Monday to Thursday in college, right, where you're working and going to school at the same time, you have the weekend 1 day to yourself, right? So that's one thing I'll just say I'll have to share.
Okay, thank you. Saeed, do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Sure. So one thing that we know from research in psychology is that um, people overestimate how much time they have, and then they underestimate how long they think things will take. There's a lot of research on this, and this is a very common misconception that people tend to have. And so one thing I would say is be really honest with yourself about how long you think an assignment is going to take, so that you can actually deliver it to the level that you expect. And then build your schedule around that. And one of the things that I hear very consistently among students is that they want to finish really fast. Hey, can I finish 4 years of college in a year? Is that like something I could maybe do? Probably not. So be honest about the timetable that you're on. If you know that you're committed to 4 years, finishing 4 years, maybe take a class in the summer if you need to work, or plan your work schedule so that you work during the summer, maybe cut back the hours in the fall and the spring. And that also goes back to that time management and money management piece, where you really have to be honest about how much money you have, how much time you have to generate what you need to get through that semester. Because what could happen, and what happens to students sometimes, is they overcommit and they say, I'm just going to do everything. I can do everything at 100%, and that's not very likely. And so the grades suffer, the work suffers, and overall, by the end of the semester, you're exhausted and you're kind of done. And so it's not in your best interest to do that. So it's really important to be honest with yourself about your goals.
So
Perfect.
one thing I just want to add is the game plan, right? Like just because it takes me, like sometimes you're talking to peers, right? And you're like, yo, how long did you study for your exam, man? It's like, oh man, I know I used to underestimate, and I will tell, even though I studied like 4 hours, kind of shy to say, hey man, I study 4 hours. Sometimes you underestimate it, and then it's like it's sometimes or it will take me longer. So one thing I'll say is that just because it takes you 4 hours and your friend is taking you 2 hours, is taking him 2 hours. Hey, everyone learns differently, right? So don't be shy to say, hey, you know what? I'm a little slow learner, right? And you know what? It takes me 4 hours to kind of study for this exam. I'm willing to put that 4 hours in, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Just this, and you just need to come up with your own game plan. Just because your friend is doing certain things a certain way in freshman, he's just going to school and he's not working, he's not going out there getting internship, that doesn't mean that you follow that same game plan, right? You need to come up with your own game plan where you need to decide, hey, that's my end goal. I see the vision is that I want to work for this prestigious firm, and how do I get there? I need to go out there, be involved in the leadership program. I need to go out there, be in their internship in the junior year of college, and that's how determined you are. Sometimes the plans don't work out the way you want them to be, and you adjust. But give it your 100%, right? I mean, if you're going to spend $20,000 a year, or even $5,000, and more, what's more important? Not even the money. If you're putting in your time into college, right? If you're spending that 1 hour, make the best of it. while you're there, have fun when you need to have fun, right? And then when you're studying, put that time towards your studying. That kind of will go a long way, just, and that could kind of go on even after college. So
That's really good advice. Yeah, I
yeah.
would say, yeah, when you're in high school, everybody's doing the same thing. You're all like just taking the same chemistry, English, bio. When you get to college, you'll realize, hey, my friend is a biology major. He has chemistry class. I'm a business major. My classes are a lot easier early on than maybe some of his classes. He has to study more than I do. So what I would do is because I went to St. John's, a lot of pharmacy students were my friends, and they would spend a lot of time studying, and all my business student friends would not be studying that much. So I got into the habit because I was closer to the pharmacy guys. I would sit with them when they're studying. I'll say I might as well study something. So I would start getting ready for the next semester if I was done with the current books, or because I knew I wanted to go to law school. I got a law school book, so I would just study for the LSAT exam. So you're gonna see that it's like find people with good habits that can help you, and that's a good skill set to have in general. Like even when you'll see some people who are always sitting at the library just drinking coffee and talking and stuff like that, who go late to class, who skip out on classes and stuff like that. You have to really, it's a test for you to figure out how you can manage your time and how you spend your time. And to circle back on the topic about working and managing your job and your career, I would say the other thing to manage is don't overburden yourself. Some people take on 40 hours of work and then try to take 18 credits in college. It's very, very hard to do that and be successful at both of them. And it will depend on what you want to do when you graduate. If you need to go to graduate school, you need a good GPA. That GPA matters. If you're just going to graduate and you're going to go into a career path, and your GPA is only going to matter maybe for your first job interview, or you're in a non-competitive field where it doesn't really matter that much, as long as you get your degree, then it won't matter as much. It won't hurt you. But I know people who graduate, who are in their fourth year about to graduate, and they have like less than a 3.0 GPA, and they want to work in an accounting firm at the top accounting firms. And I'll say, your GPA is too low. They won't even give you an interview. It's like, but the reason it's low is because I was working 40 hours a week. Well, I said, like you really needed to balance your time at and figure that out. And maybe you needed to go back. Maybe now you need to go back for a master's degree and just focus on the college and get your GPA up in graduate. And that can make up for your lower undergraduate degree. So there's like ways you can work around it. I've seen people with low GPAs that are graduating, and they'll say, look at my core GPA. All my science classes are good. All my major business classes are good. Yes, I got a C in English. Who cares about English? You know what I mean? And I have seen like recruiters take that into account and say, oh, yeah, your core GPA is pretty good. Your overall GPA was not good. Or you switched majors before, you were a bio major and you wanted to do medicine, but you decided to switch, and that GPA is dragging you down. And there are options like pass fail that can help eliminate some of those bad grades that are not important if the school permits it. And there's other ways you can kind of manage that grade, but you have to know, like, is my GPA important to me or not for my next step in my career path? If so, you really have to carefully manage that GPA. And I don't know if it's the same with you, Saeed, but if students come to me and say, like I used to be a graduate research assistant at St. John's, they would go to the professor and say, I need a B to pass, I'm graduating. The professor would try to help them get to the B and try to guide them and give them extra credit or something, more opportunities. So there are ways to manage that, but it's all about knowing how important is that GPA for you in your career path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it's not the way that professors handle this type of thing. Sometimes students are like, well, I need a B to get through this class. But you should tell them your personal goal, and you should know what your personal goal is from the beginning. So when you get that syllabus, sometimes students are not strategic about how they spend their time. So the syllabus tells you what assignments are worth. So if there's an assignment that's only worth 10% of the grade versus an assignment that's worth 30% or 40%, you want to spend more time on the 30 or 40% and maybe not work as hard on the 10% assignment. So that idea of not, going 100% for everything, plays out in even how you strategically think about the assignments in your courses. So that's a skill that I don't know if every high school student necessarily thinks about. In high school, you've got the assignment that's due at that particular time. It's worth however much it's worth. and your goal is to just finish it. In college, you can make, different choices, and you can also look for extra credit opportunities, or, try to be more involved in other ways within that search. So lots of different ways of doing that.
No, that's helpful. That's good advice. So I think so we're reaching about the halfway point of our session for today. So we've seen a few questions come in. We've done our best to answer them. If anybody has any questions, we really want to open it up to those questions. In the meantime, we'll keep touching on other pieces of advice that we can share. But if you have questions, please ask them now. This is the best time to ask it, and we'll do our best to get to those questions. In the meantime, we'll just continue sharing other general advice related to college success. In terms of getting a job out of college, are there any things that you can do? Like, you see all these people who go and they get a job at Google or Microsoft or JP Morgan. How do those people, like, I know people who graduated and they got a job at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. I know other people that graduated and are working at Macy's. How do you, if you're a business major or within a specific field, if you really want to graduate with a job, any tips you guys can share with us on how to do that successfully?
Sure. If you don't mind, I can go
Yeah,
first.
go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I kind of touched on those points a little bit, and I was saying that, like, what you can do in freshman year, sophomore year, right? Depending on the field that you're in, especially in business, right? It requires a lot more. Like, you need to be involved in school. You need to be part of like clubs. There's sometimes like these these companies, Goldman Sachs or even PwC, Ernst & Young, they have some leadership program, 3-day leadership program. If you take part in those 3-day leadership program where you're doing some kind of a project and working as a team, right? That will allow you to kind of land an internship in your junior year. And from your junior year, you can actually turn that internship into a full-time position after you graduate. So there's that path you can take. There's the path that, hey, you take internships every summer in different places, right? And you have a resume builder. GPA is important. A lot of times, it's like what you did is it's all about how you sell yourself as well, right? When you're going out there. But, I mean, if you're a freshman in college, I will just say, just try your best. I mean, those are easier classes. And if you put in your hard work, GPA will be will give you the interview, right? It will sell a good story, but a lot of it also depends on what you did in college, right? Were you involved in clubs, or were you just the type of student that just went to school and came back home? I mean, that really doesn't tell a good story. Another thing I just want to mention out there, right, is being persistent, right? And surrounding yourself with peers who share same goals as you or even higher goals than you, right? Then you can learn from them. So one thing, like, talking to seniors in college, right? Hey, what is it that you did? What is it, if you were to look back, what are some of the things that you can do better on, right? If you surround yourself, even I highly believe that it's just that what you do in college from 18 to 22, right? The habits that you develop, it kind of carries forward into your late 20s and even your 30s, right? And say that if you can also, when you're speaking to that point, right,
Mm-hmm.
you can also add to that as well. Like, if you're the type of person who's out there putting yourself out there, you're going to carry yourself that way as well. I mean, I will highly recommend that. Go out there, just surround yourself with peers who are, pushing you and pushing themselves, because most likely, if you're around those people, either you're going to be on their level or you're going to be better than them. And just motivate and help each other out. And that's what I did. And in college, I was just out there with my Queens College. I went to different conferences and I took friends with me to these conferences, and that's how I ended up getting a job, by being involved with these organizations called National Association of Black Accountants. Every field has some kind of a professional organization you can be part of. Sayeed, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, great. So I think there are two things that we can talk about here. One is it really depends on where you're starting. If you have a clear idea, freshman year, I'm going to medical school, that's what I really want to do. Then you kind of can build from there. Sometimes, though, when people start college, they're not 100% sure. And I sort of had that experience. So when when I started college, I was convinced that I was going to go to medical school. I have a lot of doctors in the family. I was really interested in the field. So I started taking the courses. I knew what I had to do. And I did an internship between my junior and senior year, and didn't really like working in a hospital. Really, was not like any of the TV shows I'd seen. It was not like that at all. I was like, man, I do not enjoy being in the hospital. What am I going to do? And so from that point, I had to figure out a new career because I'd invested so much time into going into medicine. So I tried things. So what I would suggest to anybody who maybe if you're thinking about going to college and you don't have your whole life planned out, freshman and sophomore year is a great time to maybe try things, see what those courses are like, see what you enjoy. More important than enjoyment is what are you interested in doing day to day? Whatever job, whatever career you're taking, even if you don't love it, you have to kind of live with it for the 8 hours a day that you're there. And it at least should satisfy whatever needs you happen to have with regards to, whether it's monetary needs, whether it's, something that you feel like, oh, this is going to fulfill me personally. And no one else could answer those questions except you. And so those first couple of years of college can be years of exploration where you build relationships and network with people and kind of learn about a variety of different jobs. One other thing that you could do is you can also speak to professionals that are in the field right now. So if you really want to know what it's like to be a CPA, or if you want to know what it's like to be a government accountant, you can reach out to Brother Zohaib and Brother Junaid. They're happy to answer those questions, and they'll be able to tell you the reality of the job more so than what you might be experiencing in your class. So those are things that you can do to kind of learn about where your career might go and what you have to do. And I think it's really important also, I think Junaid, you mentioned this idea of joining professional organizations or being a part of organizations that give you a leg up in terms of your professional experience. I think that's really helpful, whether that's in the business school or whether that's in, whether it's like psychology club or sociology club. Any of those organizations give you really interesting experiences and can help you to kind of find your way to where you feel like you need to be. If you already have a really clear idea of where you want to go, and you're saying like, okay, I really want to be a lawyer, or I really want to be an accountant, or I really want to go into medicine, you can start planning in your senior year of high school for what you should do in your college experience. And you can set those milestones for yourself, and then at the end of each semester, you can reflect to see how far along you've come to meeting those milestones and meeting those goals. So a lot of this is about self-exploration and kind of being honest with oneself about what you really want to do, and then committing to those goals and actually following through and hitting those.
So one of the things that I do want to throw out there is that, we as Muslim youth mentors, right, we have guys like Sayeed, we have engineers, we have lawyers. So look, if you're new in college, if you do not know what you want to be, right, after you graduate college, you can speak to different professionals that we have. We have professionals for almost every field. We will be happy to connect you with someone, and they can share their perspective on, hey, what is it like, in your day-to-day job. They can give you a rundown. If anyone comes up to me and asks me, hey, what is it like working as an accountant, I can give an advice from the perspective of self-employment and also being a CPA, because I have the experience on both sides. So you can take advantage of those resources, right? So I just want to shoot that out there, and then you can always reach out to us via muslimyouthmentors@gmail.com, and we will be happy to connect you with a mentor.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the end of our event, we're going to put up our email addresses, so you can reach out, and then we can connect you with the right person. And we've tried to do that for many, many years. We did get a question, and someone asked, they say the best way to get a job is through reference. What are your guys' thoughts on that? So any thoughts on that? Like, it's who you know more than what you know sometimes. So any thoughts on that about helping you get a job?
I can talk a little bit about this. So one thing about it, you still have to be able to do the job for the most part. So even if you knew somebody who could get you a particular job, you still have to be able to perform. So, being actually having the skills necessary to complete a job is important. And so gaining those experiences, as Junaid mentioned, so that you can build up those skills, and so that you can show that, yes, I've done the following things and I fit the requirements for this particular position, that's really important. But what networking and what references can do is they can make you aware of jobs that you might not know about. And so we've been talking a lot about opportunity, building those relationships, whether it's through Muslim Youth Mentors, whether it's through your MSA, whether it's through a business club, can make you aware of opportunities that you didn't know were there before. And that's something that you can't play in a game that you don't know is happening. Right. So that's one thing that I always encourage people to do is you never know where those opportunities are going to come from. And so having those sorts of relationships is important. I think one area that is very underutilized is college professors and teaching assistants. If you make it clear to a professor that you really want to, I'm really interested in this area, I'm interested in cost accounting, please let me know if you ever work on a project like this, or I'm really interested in this area of research in biology, can I be a part of your lab? That is something that professors will pay attention to. My first consulting experiences were because I told a professor, hey, I'm really interested in this. Would you mind taking me along? And he did. So those are the types of opportunities that if you aren't explicit about what you're interested in, and if you don't talk to people about it, you would never know that they would happen. So these are the types of things that I think are very helpful.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. So I would say I think all those points are very valid. I'll just throw out one other thing. I think it can help you get a job if you can get a reference. If you know somebody in your class, like one of the guys who became a very senior partner at PwC, he said he got his first job at PwC, which is one of the more prestigious accounting firms out there, because the person in front of him was interning there. So he said, hey, where are you interning? I'm interning at PwC. I want to work at PwC. And she said, all right, well, I'm working as a secretary there. I can ask about if they have another need. So he came in as a secretary. It's like he worked in the mailroom, basically. He's working from the bottom all the way up. Then he was working there, and they were like, you're too smart to be a secretary for your whole career. Go back and get your accounting degree, and we'll get you a job as an associate, So there are those opportunities that organically develop, but you have to be the one seeking them. It can't be you just go to class, you pay attention there, you go home, you go to sleep, or you just work at a job part-time, but you're not proactively seeking opportunities. You have to be proactive and get those opportunities. I'll just share two quick experiences. One time, I was on a bus leaving St. John's University. All these students are getting. I noticed somebody's walking from the law school. The law school is very prestigious. It's right in the front of the entrance. So I asked him, like, hey, do you go to the law school at St. John's? He's like, yeah. So I said, I want to go to the law school. And it's a white guy, completely did not know him at all. And I was like, what's it like going to law school? And just like we were stuck on the bus for 15 minutes until we got to the next stop. And he was nice enough. He would start sharing advice about what it's like to go to law school, how you can pay for law school, and things like that. And then when I was a cashier at a bank, one of the persons who used to come in, we knew she was a lawyer, and I wanted to go to law school at that time. So I asked her, I said, hey, can I intern with you? I know you have your own like law firm. Can I go with you? And she allowed me to go to court with her one day, and I was just shadowing her, and I sat there and I just saw it, and I'm like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I realized, all the paperwork involved and all of that stuff. It's not like the TV shows, like you said. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking trying to be a lawyer. It's so much paperwork, so much just sitting there, going to court, waiting for your turn. And I learned a lot, and it was just being proactive. It's not like finding a mentor is thrown out a lot, but it doesn't mean like you go to somebody, you have them sign a contract. You are my mentor now. Mentor is like just asking people for advice, informally, formally, whatever it is. And same thing with me. When my students come to me, they'll say, I'm really interested in being a professor. I'm really interested in getting a PhD in accounting. Any thoughts? And I'm like, oh, perfect. I know that route. I've gone that route, and I can share my own experiences or connect with someone. And so it's just about seeking those opportunities when they become available.
So I can speak also from the business perspective as well, right? Like a lot of times you hear that, hey, I know a guy, right? Or that knows a guy, and then usually somebody is actually vouching out for that person, right? And usually people do that if they really feel like you are delivering a good product or service to them, right? So even now, as I'm in my own business, right, I'm in the electronics business, and what ends up happening is a lot of times people are just throwing references at me and telling me, hey, I know this company out here that provides the electronic needs that are there, right? Just like it's like you need to know people, but you need to be a good product yourself. You are a product, or you are a service that you provide. And once you get good at what you do, and even in college, right, like we're talking about, right, if you deliver anything that you do, even in college, like let's say you need Professor Zohaib Qamar, right, and he works at an accounting firm, and you are the top of the notch student, always out there getting involved, and you came up to him, hey, I'm looking for a job, and I happen to reach out to Zohaib, and hey, I'm looking for an intern. He will automatically refer you to me. That's why ends up happening a lot of times. So, just going that extra mile at places, people automatically throwing their back. They say, hey, you know what? This guy is really good. This person is really good. So, you have to build your own product, right? So once you do that, references are easier to get. You will get those references automatically.
Yeah. And one thing I just wanted to add on that is sometimes we think there's racism always against us. Oh, I'm not getting internships because I'm Muslim. I have a beard. I have a hijab on
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And yes, there is some aspect of racism in every society, every country in the world. Nobody's free of that stuff, right? But don't let that be the first thing that comes to your mind and holds you back from applying to a job, for asking for that opportunity. Um, so that's just another thing I think sometimes we get and let it overwork us. And they're like, you know why I'm not getting ahead? Because I'm a minority. I'm not getting ahead because of my religion. There is that negativity there. There is real instances of that stuff happening, but don't let it hold you back. There's enough opportunities out there. If you keep trying, you can get an internship, you can get a job. So don't let that stuff hold you back either. Just one thing that I've heard sometimes, and I just
Yep.
wanted to kind of address that.
So
Yep.
one thing I would like to add to that, sometimes, we've been talking a lot about doing a lot of things. And one thing I'd suggest is sometimes it's better to do fewer things really well than to do a lot of things kind of poorly.
Exactly.
In Islam, we call this idea ihsan, right? Doing something so that you beautify it and you make it as good as possible. So maybe you don't get to do every opportunity, or you don't get to join every club, but you join one club and you do a great job there. And maybe you are able to show how good you are, or maybe you get an internship and it's not the perfect exact one that you wanted, but you make the best of it. And I think that's one way in which you can turn any experience into the best possible one that you can have, is by really putting yourself out there and doing the best you can. So at least I did my part, and I did that to the best of my ability. And part of that goes back to not overburdening yourself by this pressure to, like, oh, I have to compete with everybody else, in that level.
Yeah, that's very true, and that's a very really good point. Sometimes students overwhelm themselves; they take on too much responsibilities, and then it's tough. And that's the same thing in the work field as well. I know people who take on too much like extra stuff, and they don't focus on their core job responsibilities, which is why they were hired, and then they fall behind on that. So
Yep.
it's always finding that right balance, and that carries through to your career. Because we only have about 7 minutes left, I just wanted to touch on one or two other items that I think are important for anybody as a professional. As you just graduated, you're still in college. What are the best ways to land your dream job or turn your career around? If you graduated, you're not in the right job, or you feel like the job openings aren't there, or you're about to graduate, you're in your end of your junior year, you're in the end of your senior year, you're a few months before you graduate, but there's no job that you've lined up. Any thoughts or ways you think students can kind of land that job now that they're in that phase of their career or education?
So I kind of did one route, right? That, hey, things didn't work out for me first year. As I told you, I got rejected by PwC or one of the big four accounting firm. And then second year, I also got rejected. So time was ticking for me. I'm like, hey, what do I do now? So I delayed my graduation by one semester. I'm like, you know what? I'll go out there. I delayed it even by 1 year. I took a semester break, and then I went to Queens College, and delaying I ended up taking 1.5 years to graduate from my master's program instead of 1 year, because that allowed me to kind of network. I put it out there. Hey, you know what? I'm going to study for my CPA in the first semester, and I'm only going to take 1 or 2 classes instead of taking 4 or 5 classes. And that was my game plan. So if I had passed some of my CPA exams while going for my interview, that was a quick selling point. So when I went for those job interviews, there was a reason why I ended up getting like 2 job offers, is because I went with like 2 parts of my CPA exam. I was a little better than my competition. I was only one of the 2 students who actually went out to Maryland, right? So look, I believe at the end of the day, right, it's not about what I did or what, it's just how you differentiate yourself. The whole takeaway over here is like, how do you differentiate yourself from other people? Like, you're in Baruch College, you're one of the 2,000 accounting students, right? And every single student, in my opinion, is capable of getting a job that they want, right? Or doing what they want for themselves. It's just differentiating your brand. How do you do that? Whether it's through your GPA and internship, whether it's through passing CPA, you have the answer to your own questions. You have to evaluate yourself. Take a piece of paper, write down, hey, these are my strengths. These are my weakness. Oh, what do I need to do? Sometimes writing those things down and coming up with a game plan, right, can help you go a long way. That's my take on it.
Yeah, so one thing that I find is very useful is, if you have a dream job in mind, is to work backwards from that. So, if you really want to work at Google, Google tells you how to get a job at Google. Their careers page is very clear about what they're looking for, what skills you need. And, if you are in that position now where you're like, I'm not really good enough yet to get the job there, then look at that job description and see what you need to do. And then either if in your current position, or if you're a student looking to build those skills, start adding those skills. Find ways to get involved in projects, even student projects that could be helpful. If you're currently in a job and you're like, this isn't really what I wanted, and I'm not necessarily getting the experience that I want, there are ways in which you could maybe volunteer your time. So if you have an accounting background, if you work with a nonprofit and you say, I really need to have this type of financial knowledge, offer it. See if you can get that opportunity. See if you can do that. And that way you can build up your skill set so that you better match the job that you happen to have. So rather than just saying, well, this job doesn't have what I want, try to find ways to include the things that you want, and then take from that job what you can so that you can move forward. And if you're still in school, try to find opportunities by which you can develop the skills that you need. Those could be things like hackathons. They could be, other opportunities, working with a faculty member, doing research. And the other part is one that I want to mention that Junaid mentioned as well, which is really important, is writing a resume that highlights your skills. So just saying like, hey, I've got one resume and I send it to everybody, that's not really going to highlight the skills that are needed. Every job is a little bit different. So you want to tweak your resume slightly so that you highlight the skills. Because when a recruiter or somebody in the human resources department looks at your resume, they're not going to spend a ton of time looking at it. You need to be the one that connects those dots for them, so that you go from, wow, this is one out of 1,000 resumes that we received, to, oh, this resume really seems to match what we're looking for. Let's call this person and let's make that connection.
Perfect. I think we have 1 minute left. So I think, just to recap, some of the things that we talked about were about seeking mentors, better managing how you approach your classes, and managing your GPA, figuring out how important that is to you. Some of the other things that we mentioned that might not have come across was like joining networking organizations. There's race-based organizations based around ethnicity. There's based on careers. Join those organizations. Be proactive. Figuring out how to manage your time in between all of this stuff. So jobs, organizations, clubs, and then your regular schoolwork, finding the right balance for yourself, seeking out other like-minded individuals who will help you to achieve those goals so you can help each other. Other things I would say is most colleges have on-campus recruiting in their final year. You have to apply to that program and get into it. And then all the companies will come on campus and you're only competing against other students for those jobs. You're not competing against a person with 5 years of experience for an IT job at JP Morgan or Google. A lot of people don't realize that program's there. You have to take advantage of that and apply to it, which would also include going to the career office, which is another resource people don't take. They have a list of jobs at the career office. They help you do mock interviews many times. They have dinner etiquette classes. They have speakers coming in. So there's lots of things that they do, but you have to, like, I would say, just add them on your LinkedIn, your Facebook page, so you know what their events are and join the ones that you can without overburdening yourself. So I think those are some of the things I just wanted to highlight that might not have come across. And the final thing is apply to as many jobs and internships as possible. Don't be scared about applying. Go to career fairs, used to be in person, now they're virtual. Go to those events. If you're not there, you can't get a job, right? And there could be 200 employers there. So you have to step out, take the day off, take a half day off from work. If you're working and going to class, tell your professor I'm going to miss a class today. And I tell my own students, if it's a choice between going to a job interview, going to a career fair, and coming to my class, if it's nothing special going on that week, go to that event. I'd rather you try to get a job before you graduate. So with that, I think we wanted to close. At 6:31, we're 1 minute over our limit. And thank everybody for joining us. Next week, we're going to have two speakers talking specifically about careers in IT. And then we have our emails at the bottom of the screen. So Muslim Youth Mentors at Gmail and info@Masjid Hamza. You can email either a group and we'll try to connect you with either speaker if you have specific questions for them. So next week, we're going to talk about careers in IT. And we want to ask all of you guys to join us next week. And thank you. Thank you to speakers and thank you for everybody for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, guys.
Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum.